I wanted to start this presentation with a story about the mighty lion. Now, the mighty lion is grazing the savannah, thinking about its next meal. It is hungry. It is a big svelte lion. Now, option one is a svelte gazelle, a spry svelte gazelle that can move quite fast and agilely through the savannah. And option B, a tiny, squirrely field mouse. Now, before the lion decides, we've got to go through the tail of the tape. On one end, the field mouse, you can think of the field mouse as the Pringles of lion food, is 30 calories, tiny, easy to eat, but yet still requires a little bit of effort. On the other hand, you have the gazelle, 250,000 calories. Yes, I Googled that, and it is definitely achievable. It's gonna take some work. It's gonna take some effort, but if the lion succeeds, it will be able to feed the entire pride. So, option one is the path to oblivion. Option two, survive and thrive. Now, my friends, here is the rub. You must choose wisely because you, every single day, as an executive, as an entrepreneur, as a creator, are the lion. And you must choose between eating the field mouse, what we call $10 an hour work, inbox zero, comments, Slack, organizing notes, managing social media, and your high leverage, high impact 10K work, $10,000 per hour work, like setting your visions, strategy, planting seeds for the future, cultivating those most important relationships. Now remember, survive and thrive or path to oblivion. Which one will you pick? Now, first, allow me to introduce myself. In the words of Jay-Z, my name is Khe Hy. I'm the founder and CEO of RadReads. It is a newsletter, a blog, an online trading company. We do productivity coaching, and I've been a creator myself for 8 years. We teach the course Supercharge Your Productivity. We run the 10K Accelerator, and I'm a coach for different executives and entrepreneurs. But I'm also a former Wall Streeter. I was one of the youngest managing directors at BlackRock, and I quit at 35 without a plan to become a newsletter writer, and here we are 8 years later. On top of that, I surf every day, 450 days since 2018, and I tell a bunch of dad jokes. Now, our mission is to help you lead more productive, examined, and joyful lives. Let us dig into that a bit, right? Our mission to help you lead a more productive, examined, and joyful life. Now, I've been in the productivity space for a long time, and most productivity blogs just stop there. It's about being productivity, nothing else. That leads to burnout, that leads to sabotaging relationships, that leads to exhaustion. And so we'll call the productive part of life the 5 a.m. frog eaters, right? Wake up early, take a cold shower, eat that frog, all is good. But we want you to also live an examined life, a more philosophical life. We want to approach things with intention. So the examined life, as Socrates said, the unexamined life is not worth living. So we help you examine your life so it's worth living. But if you only examine your life all day and every day, you would be a woo-woo navel gazer going on wellness retreats in Costa Rica. Lastly, we want you to lead a joyful life, right? And a joyful life, we want you to be happy. What's the point of being an entrepreneur, being a creator, being an executive if you're not happy? And we believe that we could put all these pieces together to help you lead more joyful lives. But again, if all you were pursuing was happiness, you'd be a delusional optimist. You'd be a believer of the secret. You'd be manifesting every day. So to really understand our mission, we want you to land smack in the middle of more joyful, productive, and examined life. So let us get started. We've got a goodie for you. If you just look in the comments, we have our 10K workbook, which will help you implement all of the lessons that have been taught, the methods, the principles, the tactics, and it will help you implement it into your everyday life. So don't forget to check out our 10K workbook. All right. Let us start with airline travel, right? The peace and quiet of business travel. I'm actually going on a flight tomorrow, cross country, LA to New York, and the flight is about 5 hours. And we've all been on that flight, weak Wi-Fi, watery coffee, and you sit down and you're like, I am going to hammer and crank out all of this work. You have books and newspapers and magazines and podcasts. You're going to do it all, but you're going to do work. However, you start working, you get a few things done, then your attention starts to wander and you start using the built-in texting that comes with the flight. Maybe you try to watch some videos that you've downloaded onto your phone, right? And the research has shown that categorically, everyone has 4 productive hours during our day. So with that, and I know you're thinking, I got way more than 4 hours of work to do. How do we use these productive hours effectively, right? How do we move the needle on what matters and what will you work on? So we're going to spend the lion's share of this presentation on what you will work on, but there are some enemies that await, right? So the first enemy is the mere urgency effect, right? It's the illusion that something right in front of you will expire. That text, that email, that YouTube video that someone wants you to watch, the urgency of it, remember the urgent but not important, that our brains are wired to attach to urgency, right? So that is an enemy in these 4 hours of free time. Then there's the present bias. We would rather be happy right now than in the future, which is why we delay savings, we don't exercise, and we eat tons of junk food. It feels good in the present. Dopamine of TikTok feels good in the moment. This is another obstacle to those 4 worthy hours that await, right? Then you have Parkinson's law, right? I want you to recall back to when you were in college, you had a term paper to write and you had 3 months to do it, right? Matter expands to fill the space, right? You end up chipping away at that paper instead of doing a sprint or hitting it with precision, right? So time expands to fill the space given to it. And then there's the Zeigarnik effect, which is when you keep everything in your short-term memory, right? Instead of having a system to organize things, you're just thinking about, oh, I got to change the smoke alarm. Oh, I have to pay my taxes. Oh, I have to Venmo the nanny. All of those things clog up your creative mind space, your real deep work thinking space. That is the Zeigarnik effect. So the deck is stacked against us. Oh no. And there's one more. It is called meta work, right? What is the term for someone who forever studies yet never does the thing? You never do the thing. You watch Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu instead of making it to class. You read parenting books instead of parenting. You watch design videos instead of being in Figma, and you read books about writing. Lastly, talking about meta work. So these are all of the obstacles that we are faced with as we tackle these 4 hours for our businesses, for our creative projects, for our work. Now, I'm going to show you 3 things that you can't unsee. So, an upside down Chicago Bulls logo is a robot reading the Bible. You'll never see that logo the same. The Bronx Zoo has the New York skyline in the legs of the giraffes. And you probably have known that one of the secrets to being an incredible photographer is using portrait mode and then using the rule of thirds. Look at any billboard, any photo that catches your eye, and it will land right in that rule of thirds. What else can't you unsee? The 10K work matrix, which is the crux of this presentation. So let me explain what's going on here. On the vertical axis, you have leverage, high leverage and low leverage. And on the horizontal axis, you have skill, low skill and high skill. And as you go through every quadrant, you are increasing the impact of your work. So you start with $10 work, which is work that you could do hungover, low skill, low leverage, and you work your way all the way up to high skill, high leverage, which is 10K work. Now, if you split this down the middle, you start to see a dichotomy between low value and high value work, right? It's the difference between efficiency, squeezing water out of the stone, and effectiveness, getting the right thing done. It's the difference between execution, just moving on the next thing, and growth. It's the difference between hungover work and deep work. It releases dopamine. Low value work feels good. It's like watching a TikTok video. High value work, hard to define. You don't know if you're doing it right. And then you have the difference between the short game and the long game. And most importantly, the low value work always feels like a grind. You're struggling. Whereas 10K work, high value work often comes with ease. right? Now, I want to point out, there are people watching this from all different points of their career, all different parts of the world. It's not about actually earning $10,000 an hour. It is about finding those force multipliers. So if you have something that's $10 work, like checking your email, what's something 10 times more impactful? Writing an SOP, a standard operating procedure. What's something that's 100 times more impactful? Developing a Keystone skill, which we're going to talk about. And what's something that is 1,000 times more impactful than checking your email? And that, my friends, is the 10K work. So questions can help us navigate this matrix, right? If we look at this matrix again, the $10 work is, why am I doing this? When you are in a rabbit hole of low value work, putting out fires, responding to emails, commenting on things, why am I doing this? Then you get to $100 work. What is the thing you're really trying to do? You then get to $1,000 work. What can only I do? And then you get to 10K work. How can I scale myself? Again, a question for entrepreneurs, executives, leaders. How can I scale myself? So first, we want you to meet leverage. Leverage is a key component. It's not financial leverage. It's just the amplification of your effects, of your impact. Archimedes said, give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the world. Now remember, don't confuse efficiency. Efficiency is squeezing water out of a stone with leverage. It is the difference. Leverage is the difference of working on your business versus working in your business. And if you saw me just give that stiff arm, that was my daughter coming into the room. We want you to always look for that one-to-many effect. And that is the power of leverage. Again, not financial leverage, but the amplification of effort, right? So this is a picture of our board meeting. I surf, like I said, 450 days since 2018. But I want to think about your leverage statement. So I was speaking to one of my friends, or I was thinking about our own leverage statement. Leverage is when I go surfing and our students keep learning, right? We run an education business. So when I surf, I want our students to keep learning. So the question is, what does the business look like without me? Next, my friend, Anne-Laure Lecomte. Some of you might know her. She was out with some friend and she said, leverage when I had a late night with friends and our products keep selling. She sells a paid community. And the 10K question, the high value question for her is, how do I create products with a replication cost of 0? All right. So let us get started with leverage. We'll start with the 80-20 rule. You might have heard of this from Richard Koch, who wrote the 80-20 rule, or it's also known as the Pareto principle. But this is how we're going to start to find leverage, to find and identify leverage. So you see 80% of outputs come from 20% of inputs, which is another way of saying that 80% of the work you do doesn't move the needle, right? So it's in that lower value category. And you'll be shocked to see that this rule of thumb applies to so many parts of your life, right? In your work life, 80% of sales come from 20% of clients. If you are in any freelance business, or you're an accountant, a financial planner, you'll see there are these super connectors. 80%, I won't read them all, 80% of defects come from 20% of the causes, referrals, user activity. So you can see that, and you can start to look for that in your client base, in your referral base. Then in everyday life, 80% of our activities, of our happiness come from 20% of our activities. 80% of our wasted time comes from 20% of our distractions. It's actually not 80% of our stocks. It's like 95% of our stocks are owned by 5% of households. So if you really want to understand US policy, look no further than that, right? You could see the implications of that. Now, my own experience with leverage, I left finance after a successful career at 35. And so much of my leverage came from, I had an impeccable team, which allowed me to actually excel in that career without working that many hours, which is an anomaly on Wall Street. I surf all the time. 2 of the highest leverage activities for me in surfing didn't actually involve me getting in the ocean. One was strengthening my shoulders, and the other was learning how to read waves, right? Which you can actually do by just sitting on the beach. In our marketing, we use SEO, and 80% of our traffic comes from 20% of our blog posts, maybe even less blog posts. Again, a tremendous amount of leverage in our SEO strategy, search engine optimization strategy. And even with my health, I'm pre-hypertension. And the one thing that I tried everything to lower my blood pressure naturally. The one thing that brought it down was was sleeping for 8.5 hours a night. So adding an hour of sleep every night. So let us actually go through now each quadrant of the matrix. So we'll start with $10 work, which are dopamine machines, right? So that $10 work is like email, Slack, WhatsApp, just the constant getting through all of your messages, which every single one of you struggles with. Next, you have organization or labels or folders, email folders. Please don't use email folders or Gmail labels. I love this tweet from Adam Grant, which says on average, it takes people 67 hours to organize their emails into folders, but it takes them longer to find them because the 80-20 is search. Search is so good to find emails. You don't need to organize them. Don't even get me started on the scrolls, the swoops, the swipes, doom scrolling, TikTok, all of that. We know how that's $10 work. And for my Excel and my Wall Street junkies here, we know all about the row stripes, the columns, the decimal places, the print areas. And then, of course, Notion, color-coded calendars, and personal knowledge management. All of these are examples of $10 work, but it feels so good when you do it. All right, next, why do we do $10 work, right? This is where it gets interesting because, like I said, with RadReads, we connect that productivity with the examined and joyful life. So we connect the how with the why. And I love this quote that says $10 work is pain management, right? Attention management is pain management. And that's a quote from Nir Eyal. So when you are think about that time when you're working on the wrong thing. Maybe you're plowing through your emails. Maybe you are on Reddit, or maybe you are responding to comments and tweets and DMs, right? Why are you doing that? Is there something you're trying to escape, right? Maybe the task is just poorly defined. That's the easy case. Just define the task more precisely. But maybe you have imposter syndrome, or you're a perfectionist, or you have trouble starting, or afraid of failing. Maybe you're just tired, right? Which one of these drives your $10 work? It's important for you to identify the root cause of your $10 work. Next, we get to $100 work, right? This is leveraged dopamine, and this is the danger zone. Remember, efficiency, using the Superhuman app, using some scheduler for social media, keyboard shortcuts. Sure, they're better than scrolling TikTok, but it ain't it. That's not it, right? Efficiency is not the same thing as effectiveness. Effectiveness is getting the right thing done for the minimal amount of effort. Now, I know you probably will set up these elaborate content management, productivity systems, different workflows, but always remember, what does this do for our business in 5 years, right? Because oftentimes you are just rearranging something in your house, right? You're not actually moving towards some ultimate longer term vision, right? And $100 work sneaks up. It sneaks up in tools like Notion and no-code apps and Zapier and Roam and Alfred, and pick your favorite productivity tool du jour, but also in systems like David Allen's Getting Things Done, or you need a budget, or different automations, or bullet journaling. Look, these things are important, but they're not it. They are not the levers that will make your business, make your company succeed. And be careful because it's a trap, right? Oops, skip that slide. Next, we go to $1,000 work, right? $1,000 work is an interesting one because it is a damn good life. Right? $1,000 work is you got a degree, you learned a unique skill, you've done something for a while. People will pay you, clients will pay you, employees will pay you. You could start a company around that. $1,000 work is the real deal. It is a damn good life, and it's someone who has invested their lives to continued growth. Here you see, like, there are different programmers. People might actually get paid close to $1,000 an hour. If you look at that Wall Street Journal article, some lawyers, some fancy lawyers will bill $1,500 an hour because they have such a unique skill. Maybe they restructure bankrupt retailers, right? But they have a unique skill that they can charge a market premium for. Now, you might be asking, how do I expand these skills, right? And the classic trope, especially on the internet, on Twitter, is to learn how to code, right? Everyone should learn how to code. No, that's not what we're telling you here. In fact, we're telling you to look for some keystone skills, some adjacent skills. What is a skill right next to the thing that you're good at that increases the value of the thing that you're good at? So a salesperson who's a good writer, that's really powerful. Digital marketer who understands product design, also very powerful combo. In my old world of finance, investors who understood legal contracts, a very powerful combination, right? So you can find these skills one satellite over, and they have a tremendous amount of value and grow your portfolio of skills. Now, there are a certain amount of 1K skills, and again, this is unique skill but no leverage, that will boost your value. And they transcend industry, they transcend age group, and this is not a comprehensive list, but definitely I encourage you to consider adding these into your own toolkit. So the first is public speaking. Especially these days, now in the world of short form video, in the world of video first world that we're moving into, everyone needs to be able to get in front of a camera and speak. Dirty little secret is, I had a great career on Wall Street, but I was always knocked down for not being a confident public speaker. And now I speak on the internet, on YouTube, on different channels every day. And so public speaking can be learned, despite it being one of the things that people are most scared of. Next, we have writing. Writing is a form of levered communication. Write it down once, amplify it through media, within your company, on your blog, through your tweets, right? Leverage, there's so much leverage in writing, especially if you're a good writer. Next, we get to sales. At the end of the day, everything is a sale. Your Tinder profile, or Hinge, I guess I've been married for a while. So your Hinge profile is a sale. Your investment committee memo is a sale. Your channel description on YouTube is a sale. Everything is a sale. So the faster, the better you understand selling, and specifically the psychology of selling, the more valuable your skill base becomes. This next category I call technical sensibility. Is the ability to navigate all of the new technologies, not from a coding or engineering perspective, but understanding how to communicate. Like in this tool, we're recording this in Loom. I have a DSLR camera, but also using tools that I mentioned earlier, like Zapier or knowledge management, setting up Notion effectively. Again, these are different tools that if brought to an organization, you don't need to be an engineer, but they have a tremendous amount of value in them. Design, as you can see, I'm a big fan of design. I'm not particularly good at it, but design communicates consistency, communicates trust, and again, little things like using the same fonts or the rule of thirds or different color schemes can go a long way, and again, boosting your value of 1K work. Lastly, negotiation. At the end of the day, you're probably going to be faced with some kind of negotiation, whether it's a contract, a legal agreement, a pricing discussion, and understanding the theory, the psychology, the frameworks behind negotiation. Again, this is not a comprehensive list, but these are all different ways in which you can really grow your portfolio of 1K work. And in this challenging economic environment, they make you anti-fragile. So let's go to the main event, $10,000 per hour work, or what we call 10K work. No, that is fake. I found it on Google. Yes. You're asking yourself, what? What is this thing? So let us dig into this 10K work. First of all, for most of it, I wish there was a sexier answer. It's about other people. It's the people that you work with, the people that you work for, your stakeholders, right? And it always starts with elevating others, recruiting, training, engaging, and retaining. Next, there is a one-to-many approach. Look for ways that you can amplify your message, right? One-to-many. We're going to talk more about that. Then there's something quite uncomfortable about 10K work. It's the classic important but not urgent. You've got to be comfortable with delayed gratification. You've got to be comfortable with uncertain payoffs, right? So how do you get comfortable with delayed gratification? Now, these are different examples of 10K work, right? This is, again, not a comprehensive list, But I want you to pay attention to these examples. So the first one we mentioned is talent, right? And again, doesn't mean you have to own a business. Doesn't mean you have to be an entrepreneur. Your colleagues are a form of leverage. Your boss can even be a form of leverage if they open the right doors for you. Helping recruit is a form of leverage. Creating educational policies, onboarding, remote work policies. These are all different ways to work with the highest leverage point, which is talent. Next, we get to distribution, right? The distribution, for example, of this presentation. I've given this presentation 150 times. And it's the culmination of a lot of work, but it is a lot of leverage in this presentation. It's our IP. Think about, especially in the world of everything, even leaving a review on Yelp or receiving a review on Yelp is a form of leverage because it boosts credibility in the eyes of Google and so on for potential customers. Early in the presentation, I talked about replication as a business model, but this is when this is 10K work inside your business, like products that have a very low cost to produce, right? If you create grills, like barbecues, like it's very expensive to create 5 barbecues versus 1 barbecue. But if you create videos, or if you create IP, if you create digital assets, right? If you manage money, it costs the same to sell 5 ebooks than it costs to sell 1 ebook, right? So that's replication in the model. Next, let's talk about vision. We all know these visionary leaders, builders, thinkers who can rally people behind an idea that doesn't even exist yet. Think about the leverage of that. You have an idea and you have credibility, and you can go to a bunch of people and say, come follow this idea, right? Wow. Like that is such leverage. You can raise money off of a vision, right? Think about the leverage in that activity. This is a little neat one, cultural translation. I think of this as, take this presentation, for example. It's a very Western-centric way of viewing the world, right? Very output-driven, very goals-driven. And in some cultures, it just wouldn't land. But there's a very powerful message in this presentation. And so someone somewhere knows how to take this message and make it relevant to a different group of people, a different audience, right? It could be cultural, it could be demographic, it could be global, it could be language, all different ways of transforming a message. Next up, we've got a big idea. Like a thing like David Allen's Getting Things Done, Cal Newport's Deep Work, Nassim Taleb's Black Swan, right? You could think of Nike, Just Do It, right? All these different ideas become memes. And there's tremendous value in a meme and how it can travel without you, right? So 10K work is a tiny meme. It's a big idea. People write blog posts about 10K work. People talk about 10K work. People tell their direct reports, hey, you should do some more 10K work. So there's leverage in identifying that big idea. Next, we get to pricing. About 2 years ago, Amazon raised the price of Amazon Prime, I believe from $100 to $130. I bet none of you noticed. None. And that was I think like $5 billion windfall for Amazon. Can you imagine the leverage where you can change the price on something and people don't even notice? That is the power of leverage in pricing. And some business models have embedded pricing in it. You think about the Tiffany's blue or the Burberry print or the Gucci red and green, right? The power of a brand. Nike, what does a brand stand for? Right? That is, building a brand is another example of 10K work. Then you get into access to relationships, access to opportunities, access to capital, access to unique ideas, right? These are all really, really powerful leverage points. And again, they constitute 10K work. They're very hard to build, but once you have them, they are extremely powerful. You can have leverage in IP and tech, right? We are working on IP of some of these materials, right? Licensing deals, right? This is leverage for a set of ideas that you can sell. People will pay money for. Capital allocation, learning how to use debt, how to use equity, how to use funding, right? So again, these are different examples of 10K work that I hope get your mind spinning, and you can kind of pick and choose for your business, for your career, for your creativity, which ones really matter for you. Next up, we get a question all the time. How much 10K work should I do? Right? I can't just sit in my ivory tower and just think about big ideas all day that will materialize in 5 to 10 years. Absolutely not. For here, I wanted to use an example of a new college graduate, right? So new college grad will have, and money. New college grad will have a lot of cash, right? They'll need cash. They might need to put a deposit for their apartment or for a car, right? They need cash to kind of move around in the world. They might have a little bit of stocks, because stocks, they have the horizon to work with stocks. But at the same time, like they might need cash to move to a nicer apartment or to upgrade their car and so on. And this new grad probably shouldn't have a ton of crypto exposure or angel investments, right? They can't take that type of bet, asymmetric bet. Now, if you take some Gen Xers, it's a completely different story, right? They might have high paying jobs, so they don't need a lot of cash. Cash comes in every 2 weeks through their paycheck. They probably own a lot of stocks, because stocks, they've been buying them in their 401k for 20 years and they just grow, 5, 6, 8% every year with the occasional downturn. And then they have the flexibility, the means, the resources to make some bets in crypto and angel investing. So we can keep that analogy going. You can think of cash as $10 work, right? You need cash to transact, but if you had your entire portfolio in cash, you'd lose money because of inflation. Next, if you had savings bonds, right? Saving bonds pay like a little bit of interest, like 4%, 5%, 3%, much better than cash, which pays 0, but you're not going to get rich by holding bonds. So it shows that, like, yes, we all need cash and bonds. We need $10 and $100 work, but it's not getting us to where we need to be. $1,000 works is like owning stocks, right? Stocks, you own them for 10, 20 years, like you will compound wealth. You might not get Warren Buffett style rich, but you will definitely grow wealth, and especially if you do it for a long time. And then the 10K work are the things that have more asymmetry, more leverage in them. And again, based on your risk profile, based on your age, based on your desires, you can sprinkle them accordingly. So that's how you think about the portfolio approach. Now, for the last point, I want to talk about this concept of refactoring. So you could take an activity like posting on Twitter, right? And you might say, is that 10K work? It's like, well, you can take that activity and deconstruct it into different components of 10, 100, 1,000, 10K work, right? So I look at, I'm inspired by James Clear because he uses Twitter, basically almost like researches all of his ideas using Twitter. So he's using social media very strategically. I recently heard him on Tim Ferriss' podcast, and he said that he might spend up to 20 minutes on a tweet because that could then inform a blog post, which might inform a chapter in a future book, right? So there's a lot of leverage there. But here's how normies would approach Twitter. They would say first, like, oh, let me just tweet randomly, right? That's $10 tweeting, right? Then someone who's trying to do slightly better than that would say, oh, I'm going to get a scheduling app, like Hype Fury or Later.com or something. I'm going to get a scheduling app. But that doesn't help you write better tweets, right? You could have the best scheduling app in the world and your Twitter strategy could still fail. $1,000 work would be understanding effective formats. So maybe you are learning how to write listicles, or you're learning how to make memes, or you're learning how to respond to the right people, right? These are different ways of formats. This is where you will build an audience on Twitter. And then the 10K work is when you set up a feedback loop that makes these all work together, right? You iterate, you experiment, you measure, you test, you go back, and then you constantly iterate and build these seemingly random tweets into like Atomic Habits, a best-selling book that sold 5 million copies. So as we approach the end of this workshop, make sure you use your workbook, right? You will be asked to tag your tasks with 10K value. You will be asked to think about what your leverage statement is. It is all in the workbook in the description of this video. And so with that, I thank you for watching this video. I encourage you to stay connected. I'm Kemmerit at Twitter, RadReads Co on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, and sign up for our newsletter. We write an essay on 10K work every single week. We have 100,000 followers across our different platforms in our community, and we have been around for nearly a decade. So thank you for your time, and look forward, pop in and say hi on any of these channels. Take care.